And we're back with NCL on a lovely getaway. We're taking a 9-day Mediterranean cruise from Lisbon to Rome. I'm going to tell you all about the ports that we're going to visit, how to get the most beautiful places, what to see and what to do there. Very importantly, what to buy as souvenirs from my own experience, what to eat, and most importantly, where. This video is organized by port, so feel free to jump around. And now all attention to lovely Lisbon. We arrived to Lisbon 3 days in advance, and I would say that was enough, but a 4th day would have been lovely as well. So if you do have time, consider arriving a few days earlier before the departure to see Lisbon. Lisbon is one of the oldest cities in Europe, very beautiful capital, and reasonably cheap, so keep that in mind. Yes, that's right, it's one of the oldest capitals in Europe. In fact, the second oldest capital in Europe, number 1, is Athens. Lisbon is ancient. Archaeological evidence suggests the city has been inhabited since prehistoric ages. Historical records back the city to 205 BC when it was first invaded by the Romans. Obviously, the city was already there, so it's older than that. Interesting fact that Romans actually called it Olisipo, whatever that's supposed to mean. 7 cinematic hillsides and a harbor makes it postcard perfect panorama. A little bit about the history. Lisbon had it all, experienced it all. There's nothing there that would surprise. Lisbon at this point had Roman rule, Muslim occupation, imperial aspirations, and absolutely catastrophic earthquake, not to mention their own dictator. Lisbon is one of the world's oldest cities. During the Neolithic period, pre-Celtic tribes inhabited the region already, and archaeologists claim that Phoenicians established a trading port here. According to the legend, Hercules established the city much earlier, but to be fair, many cities claim this legend for themselves. The Romans began their reign here in 205 BC. Lisbon became at that time most significant cities in Iberian Peninsula, especially during the reign of Julius Caesar. After that, there was a whole set of conquerors and reconquerors, most notably Moors for 450 years, and then the city was reconquered by Christians, and eventually 1255 Lisbon became the Portuguese capital. The city reached its Venice in 14th and 15th century when it became a heart of empire stretching from Brazil to India. And then unfortunately it's run out of its luck, and the great earthquake of 1755 devastated the city, destroying it pretty much completely. Luckily for us, it was rebuilt. And now to the major cities landmarks. 25th April Bridge is a major landmark in Lisbon. It's the longest suspension bridge in Europe, was built in just 45 months and was inaugurated in 1966, was named Salazar Bridge after Antonio Salazar, the dictator of Portugal, until 1974. After the Carnation Revolution that took place on the 25th of April 1974, Salazar's regime was overturned and the bridge was given name of 25th of April. It resembles the San Francisco Golden Gate Bridge, no mistake there, because the same company designed this bridge, the American Bridge Company. And now to the questions of what to do and what to buy. When in Lisbon, absolutely have some tea and buy some as a souvenir, because Portuguese, not British, are the true inventors of tea time. The quintessentially English tea time tradition, or so they say, was actually invented in Portugal by Portuguese Princess Catherine de Braganza, who brought the tradition to Great Britain when she married Charles II and relocated to the UK. So definitely bring some tea from Portugal. When it comes to the question of what to eat, absolutely would recommend visiting the famous Time Out markets. The address you see right here, it is a massive food hall. Absolutely every star cuisine imaginable you can find there. The 26 restaurant, from the 5-star to the street food, all are amazing. Eat and drink to your heart's content with the live music. On occasion they invite DJs and there's live music. It's sort of a party place with great food. Definitely not to miss. Time to say goodbye to beautiful Lisbon and embark on the journey ahead. We're going for a 9-day Mediterranean cruise, embarking in Lisbon, heading to Rome. We had a balcony suite, which was really nice. Sometimes it's lovely to have privacy and being able to spend time on the balcony, have a glass of wine. They have room service, which is great, and nothing beats watching sunset from your own balcony. We had a complimentary dining on that day. My advice, not to have specialty dinings on either first or last day of the cruise, because the complimentary dining is usually really, really good on those days. If you want more tips on how to cruise better, check out my top 10 tips for better cruising video. They're great tips and they're all there in just a 10-minute video. You'll get it all in one place. And the next day we arrived to Malaga, Spain. From here you can actually see several places, at least Granada and Seville. Both are absolutely stunning. I will briefly tell you about each so you can make your pick. In this particular case we booked excursions with the NCL because I did not see any better options. So Seville. Seville is 2,200 years old. Yes, it's that old. The city has been home to Iberians, Romans, Moors, and finally Christians. So it has the mix of Moorish, Venetian, and other countries' influence in architecture, so no wonder you can see tons of famous movies and TV series set here. So many Spanish regions individually claim to be birthplace of tapas. Seville holds the strongest claim, however. Derived from Spanish term to cover or top, this particular dish originated as a slice of bread with a meat that Andalusian sherry drinkers would use to cover their glasses between the sips, presumably to stop flies from getting in. It developed into the variety of snacks that we know and love today as tapas, not necessarily accompanied by sherry, but not a bad idea at all. What is Seville famous for? Well, first of all, it's a final burial place of explorer Christopher Columbus. Yes, his remains are here. They traveled quite a bit, as I found out recently. So apparently it was moved to Dominican Republic and then to Havana, Cuba, before finding its resting place in Seville. And of course the fact that 2 international expos were hosted here in Seville in 1929 and in 1992. The gorgeous Plaza de España was built in 1928 for Ibero-American Exposition in 1929. It is an amazing example of regionalism in architecture, mixing elements of Baroque revival, Renaissance revival, Moorish revival styles of Spanish architecture. It is absolutely stunning, worth spending hours in just marveling at this beautiful building. And of course the stunning Granada with its magnificent Sierra Nevada mountain range with great hiking path, which you probably cannot do when you're cruising, but if you like the place enough you might want to come back here. Granada actually translated from Spanish, Granada translates into pomegranate, so pomegranate is the symbol of the city and the direct translation of the name Granada. What to see here? Of course, the magnificent Granada Cathedral. At the time it was built during the 16th century, it was the only church in the Renaissance style. It actually was the first Renaissance church in the whole country. It took almost 200 years to build. This masterpiece introduced the new era of architecture in Spain. And of course, the most important, the crown jewel of Islamic Spain is Alhambra. It's a stunning fortress overlooking the entire Granada with the backdrop of Sierra Nevada mountain range. What can be more beautiful than a stunning medieval fortress with the backdrop of the mountains? So certainly worth hours and hours of exploring. Difficult choice, I have to admit, difficult choice. Go for both if you can, come back to Spain. And in terms of what to buy, I would highly recommend buying here as a souvenir Spanish ceramics. It's very beautiful, fairly cheap, and truly of good quality. And we are in Ibiza. Ibiza, totally crazy, unquestionably stunning, the little darling of the pirates. Yes, those very pirates that was literally destined to be the party island of the world. More about that in just a moment. First and foremost, the great news, the very great news. Again, you do not have to book anything with NCL because I'm going to explain to you how to get to Ibiza for just a few euros. Ibiza, do not take the shuttle bus. You'd pay 15 and go back and forth on a shuttle bus. But with the 7, you could buy a ticket here. I showed you that tiny booth. You'd have to walk 10 minutes or so to the boat, and then for 7 you could get a return boat to the old town. You could also get a day pass, I think 10 or maybe 15, and you can go anywhere. There are 3 stops, so you can get off anywhere. I just got one for the whole town. Just to reiterate here again, you will just walk, you cannot get lost because there's just only one way, one pedestrian way from the port. So you can either ask for information in the information center, or you can just walk a few hundred meters more across the road. Again, you cannot get lost because there's no other way to go. There's only one pedestrian walk there. So there'll be people standing and selling tickets for the city boat, and there are quite a few signs pointing to the city boat. You cannot miss that. And the savings are just starting, so I'll give away a bit of a secret. I will explain to you how to get to every single port without paying much of anything on your own. You do not have to book anything with NCL because you can get much better deals if you organize it by yourselves. And I'm gonna tell you exactly how to do that. So yeah, if you have any appreciation, super thanks would be very, very much appreciated. There is a button underneath the super thanks. So yeah, if you want to tip me, I'm all up for it. And now all attention to stunning Ibiza. The group of Phoenicians settled here and founded Ibiza in 654 BC, called Iceland Ibotsim in honor of Bes, the guardian god, and guess what? God of dance, music, safety, and female adornment. So Ibiza is without a doubt living up to its name. Ibiza boasts many pristine white sand beaches and crystal clear waters, making it deservedly one of the best beach destinations in Europe, the world arguably. It was popular among Europeans since the dawn of times. Norwegian king, yes, there was such a thing, Sigurd I invaded Ibiza in 1110 to use it as a strategic part of his crusade towards Jerusalem. The island has also been invaded by Aragonese King James I in 1235, then by Moors before in 1990, Scipio brothers in 209, so quite a history for such a small island. Fun fact, back in the day when most coastal lines, cities and towns and islands were ravaged by the pirates, Ibiza has no hard feelings whatsoever. This island was the only place in the world, as far as we know, that infamous sea raiders honored. It was their little darling and no one touched it, so it was a safe haven. In 1915, in fact, an obelisk was erected in the port of Ibiza in their memory. Sort of, thanks guys for not robbing us. Pretty much the entire island of Ibiza is UNESCO World Heritage Site because of a whole bunch of things. Its biodiversity, culture, architecture, sea life, coastline, whatnot. It has an outstanding natural beauty, rich heritage and culture, pristine beaches, and remarkable landmarks such as Old Town, known as Dal Villa, that we're enjoying right now. Right by the entrance to the old town, I found a lovely coffee shop, and as I said earlier, I actually do try to take my time and maybe spend half an hour to an hour just sitting in a sidewalk cafe, observing people, enjoying the atmosphere, and trying to sort of feel like locals do. Returned to the boat, had lunch outside, which was lovely right by the pool, then went for dinner. Again, the food was great, complimentary, no need for anything else. And we are in Mallorca. Sunny Spain, loved it, loved it, loved it. Did not expect Mallorca to leave such a deep impression on me. I expected Barcelona to be my favorite port. I think Mallorca beat even Barcelona. I loved it. We had a slow breakfast. There were options to do the great outdoors. You could actually sit on the terrace up on the highest deck. Or you could potentially, and this is a bit of a secret tip here, you could go to La Cocina, at least on the Epic, because it's really, really crowded for breakfast. So they opened the La Cocina, which has much, much better seating. So go there and have your calm breakfast. For Mallorca, the best part of it, again, you do not need to book anything with NCL. You do want to buy a shuttle bus, a shuttle transfer. You buy it a day in advance. It would cost you, I think, €7 return or €15 return. I don't remember. And then you are in the downtown. It is a bit far. It's not really walkable, so I wouldn't recommend walking, but it's only a 10-minute ride by bus, and they go every 20-30 minutes, and you're right in the thick of it. They take you to the cathedral, And from there, frankly, you can walk anywhere around like 10-15 minutes walk diameter from the cathedral. You would see the best what Mallorca has to offer as far as the old town is concerned. Mallorca is a charmer. It charmed me, and I'm not easily charmed. Dating back to 13th century, when Christians reconquered the island, the name of island comes from Latin phrase insula major, which basically means larger island. As Mallorca is the largest island of all Spain, gradually the phrase was mispronounced to such an extent that it became Mallorca. The impressive Lasso Cathedral in Palma is one of Mallorca's most significant sites. It's a huge cathedral built on the site of former mosque. The building of cathedral began in 1230 and continued for 400 years. A very impressive cathedral with diverse architecture and design of Gothic and Northern European styles, with some influence from great Antonio Gaudi. We'll talk about him more in Barcelona. Famous stained glass windows have earned it the name of Cathedral of the Light. From here, literally roam free, as I said, wander in any direction from Cathedral and you cannot go wrong. It's stunning all over. You're in the very heart of Mallorca, and all best that old town has to offer, it's right there. Walk through medieval streets lined up with imposing townhouses, Baroque churches. You'll find quite a few public squares, fountains, gardens, and of course cafes. I certainly took advantage of those. And I'm having my first cup of coffee here, which is quite a joy because the coffee is not very good on board. They have Starbucks, and I don't like Starbucks that much, frankly. So I got myself a very nice cup of coffee, and we're gonna check out beautiful Mallorca. And it's actually good. It's actually a good cup of coffee. Nothing like a good cup of coffee. One of the things that I always try to do on my trips is just to slow down and sort of try to behave like locals, right? So Spanish have the siesta thing, and I'm starting mine early. It's like 11:30 now, and I'm just gonna sit down and enjoy my cup of coffee. So Mallorca has it all for dream life and holidays, culture, nature, entertainment, and definitely gastronomy. We actually went wild here, went for very, very large lunch with a lot of tapas, and I'm eyeing it for the retirement. It's very popular with Germans and Swiss for retirement. I'm thinking maybe this is a good place to go. The absolute stunning feature of Mallorca is the amazing clear sea. Everyone, including myself, are usually amazed with how blue and clear the water is. This phenomenon is caused by algae actually on the seabed. Due to these organisms, Mallorca has some of the clearest, most turquoise seawater. Here you would also find the hop on hop off bus. I would honestly say it wasn't worth it. We did take it, but to be fair, the most beautiful sites are right there by the cathedral. You do not have to pay 25 euros per person to see a couple more places. I really don't think, given the amount of time that you have, which is not that much. It's worth taking the bus ride if you want to. It's right there by the cathedral. There's a first stop. Easy, but I think, up to you. If I knew what I would have seen, I wouldn't have taken it. And now to the best part, trying the local food. We absolutely love trying local restaurants, and in this case we found a fairly small place which was really, really good, again close to the cathedral. There are many good tapas places. Just Google the ones that have the best reviews. That's what we did, and we had a blast. The food was great, and we paid 45 or 50 euros for a massive lunch. Exhausted but happy as always, we returned to the boat and spent the rest of the time on the top deck, just checking out Mallorca from afar, having a drink, spending time by the pool, which was great. The weather was fantastic, so it was great to catch up on some swimming and sunbathing. So that was a blast. And then we had a lunch, outdoors lunch. We actually ate on the top deck. And for the dinner, we finally did what I wanted to do for a while. Went to the Shanghai noodles place. It's also complimentary dining. I have to say, udon noodles, not so much. The rest of the food was actually fairly decent, fairly authentic. I used to live in China, so I know what good Chinese food is like. Most awaited port of all. That's the place I have never been to, and Barcelona was the place I really, really wanted to visit. In this particular case, we actually did buy the tour with NCL. Was it worth it? Frankly, not so much. I would have preferred, there is a shuttle. I actually took a shuttle to return. It was fairly short, only 3 hours, observing tour or whatever. It wasn't that good. Honestly, I would have preferred to take a shuttle bus and then take hop on, hop off. What I would recommend to do, absolutely get data for Europe. Get a data coverage. It's gonna be worth it. If you can navigate in the ports by yourself, you're gonna save a lot of money and get much, much better experience in every single port. We are in Barcelona. Did you know that Barcelona is older than Rome? No worries, I did not either. One theory about the origins of Barcelona states that city may have been founded by Hercules. 400 years before Rome was built. The truth is, no one really knows that that's the case. Maybe it's just a legend, but it sounds really cool. So for the purposes of this video, let's just go with that. According to other traditions, Barcelona has been founded by either Phoenicians or Carthaginians who had trading posts along the Catalonian coast. Today, Barcelona is the most visited city after London, Paris, and Istanbul. Could have been home to the Eiffel Tower. Yes, the very Eiffel Tower. If everything had gone according to Gustave Eiffel's initial plan, Paris' most famous landmark would now be in Barcelona. Then Barcelona would have been the second most visited city in the world. Unfortunately, Spain rejected the architect's project, deciding that it was too radical and did not fit the city's aesthetics. Little did they know. In fact, on his visit to the city in 1862, Hans Christian Andersen remarked that Barcelona was the Paris of Spain. The city is indeed a major cultural center with remarkable history. More than 10% of the city is covered by urban parks. Instead of shrinking, the surface actually grows by about 10 hectares every year. With this kind of trend, if it continues, there'll be nothing but parks by 2050. But again, maybe not. The fantastical Sagrada Familia church or cathedral, other modernist remarks designed by Antoni Gaudi. A lot of the buildings that are of any interest were actually designed by Antoni Gaudi. Antoni Gaudi is considered one of the most important architects with great influence on various buildings in Barcelona. Antoni Gaudi was a huge fan of nature. That's why when you look at Antoni Gaudi's buildings, you would realize nothing is repeating itself, nothing is identical. As he himself pointed out, that in nature, nothing repeats, nothing appears more than once. So everything that he did was always unique. The construction of Roman Catholic Basilica Sagrada Familia began in 1882 and still ongoing many years after his death. And then very randomly on the square, we walked into heaven. We walked into a tapas place, which was amazing, and it was self-service, so you could pick up any of these beauties that you want, and the price would be depending on how many this kind of tiny wooden sticks you would have collected, and the cost of which like between 2 and 2.5 euros. But oh my god, it was good. So definitely have lunch in Barcelona. Next day we were in Cannes. A new day, a new cup of coffee, and a new port. What can be better? And actually I provided tender boats, which are free. Great, and you arrive there in the downtown Cannes. Since I have been to Cannes before, I actually decided not to stay there. If you want to check out Cannes, check out my other videos. I'll put in the description. You check my Mediterranean cruise video, there'll be Cannes. But this time we are going wild and taking a train all by ourselves to Nice. We'll tell you all about it. And again, going heavy on coffee. As I said, coffee on board is not particularly good, so be prepared to have a lot of coffee in the port. I took a train by myself. It's fairly easy. You just navigate to the nearby train station, which is 15 to 20 minutes walk to the spot where the tender boat brings you to. Then the cost was 15 euros return per person. Again, a couple of caveats. Obviously, check the time, make sure that you do go back on time and you don't miss the boat. That's of course is the risk that you're taking if you're organizing your own tours. But if you are reasonably conservative, you should not be late for the boat, I think. So count for the fact that trains sometimes are late in France. So in my case, the train was half an hour late or something. It's usually not very long. Plus you have a bus. Worst comes to worst, you can actually take a bus. I would recommend aiming to be back, 2 hours before your last tender boat. And now, my friends, all attention to beautiful Nice. The city is nicknamed Nice la Bella, meaning Nice the Beautiful, which is also a title of unofficial anthem of Nice written by poet Monica Rondelli in 1912. Nice was popular with humanity like way back, for 400,000 years to be precise. Terra Amanta is an archaeological site which displays evidence of very early use of fire here, roughly 380,000 years ago. So Nice was popular back then. Around 350 BC, Greeks of Marseille founded a colony and called it Nikaia or Nikia, or in other words, Nike, sort of after Nike, not the brand, but rather the goddess of victory, after which the brand is named as well. It is believed that at some point they fought against the neighboring Ligoris and won. To mark their victory, the city was named after the goddess of victory. So coming to Nice was probably very adventurous of me, but so far so good. I haven't made it to the boat yet. I'll give you a lot more details of how everything happened. And yeah, I think it was a great trip. A very fast train, roughly 30 minutes. But do keep in mind they do run late quite a lot, so they're not that punctual. So I would recommend leaving an hour or so for the transfer between Cannes and Nice. Nice has both French and Italian heritage and was a part of the House of Savoy and later became the part of Kingdom of Piedmont, Sardinia. In 1860 there was a public vote and 99% of the population voted in favor of becoming French. Hence it is a part of France. The natural environment of Nice and mild, wonderful Mediterranean climate with 330 sunny days a year came to the attention of English and Russian upper classes, and in the second half of 18th century, more and more aristocratic families were spending their winters here, including Queen Victoria and her son Edward VII. Even Winston Churchill loved it. Many Russian tsars also were quite fond of Nice, and the Russian presence here became so strong that today there are 3 Orthodox cathedrals in Nice. Nice was also favored with artists, loved by Paganini and Picasso, who used to live here. An annual festival is held in Nice since the Middle Ages. Every year in February, the Carnival of Nice, this colorful, festive, beautiful event, traditionally was the day of lower classes wearing masks and mocking the powerful without any drawbacks. This time around I was very excited about coming back to the ship because this time we had the specialty dining. So these are the fancy restaurants that you have on board. They're not included, not complimentary. So we had one and we went to La Bistro and it was great. It's our favorite French restaurant on board. And as always, did not disappoint. We really enjoyed the food. And afterwards we had the show. It was a great dancing show. We really enjoyed it. Beautiful Florence. I was very excited about the sport. I've been here quite a few times, but I love the city so much that I was excited to go here again. So what can you do here? We did not do the best thing, so I'm gonna learn from my mistakes. So again, you do not have to book anything with NCL if you don't want to. So what you can do, and the best thing to do, to buy a shuttle transfer, get onto the shuttle, and exactly on the spot where they drop you off, there will be local providers and they will offer you Florence for 40 euros return by bus. We, however, did not look for easy ways. We took a train by ourselves. I would recommend against it, actually. I would recommend taking the tour because we regretted taking a train. It was too much hassle and unwarranted, frankly. And we are in Florence, the birthplace of some of my favorite things in the world: gelato, Renaissance, piano, and opera. It was the birthplace of the Renaissance. Political, artistic, and cultural rebirth followed the Middle Ages. From 1865 to 1871, Florence was actually the capital of the Kingdom of Italy. The main site here is, of course, Florence Cathedral, with impressive dome that used to be the largest in the world at the time of its completion, and today it remains the largest brick dome in the world. Opera originated here in late 16th century. It is believed that Bernardo Buontalenti invented gelato in Florence in 16th century. He was the first who added eggs and milk and froze it all into the delicious dessert. And I will tell you where in Florence you can buy arguably the best ice cream in the world, so stay tuned. Gucci was founded here if you're interested in luxury, and is still headquartered today. And now to the food, to the most interesting and most important part of a retreat. Pizza was amazing. Go to this one, it's actually very close to the cathedral. Just navigate there with the Google, go for Napoli pizza. And finally, ice cream. Ice cream was absolutely amazing. You won't regret it. There will be a line, but they do serve fairly quickly, so we waited for less than 10 minutes and we even got seated, and the taste was fantastic. The history of the city goes back to the 6th century BCE, when Etruscans founded a settlement on the hill near Florence. Romans founded a military village at Florence, calling it Florentia, in 59 BCE. The Republic of Florence emerged in 1115 CE and became a very powerful force. It had its own currency, florin, and gold Florentine coin, which became a dominant currency across Western Europe. In 1339, Florence became the first city in Europe to have the paved roads. It was very advanced. In 15th century, the Medici rose to power, and they were the bankers of the Pope and great patrons of art, commissioning many works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and many others. And the beauty of their creations you can see throughout the city. And of course, the famous Medici family came from agricultural Mugello region north of Florence. They were first mentioned in 1230. The origin of the name is very interesting. Medici is plural for medico, which actually means medical doctor. The dynasty began when they founded the Medici Bank in Florence in 1397. Florence was truly an amazing experience. The food is amazing, the place is amazing, people are nice. We really loved it. So take your time, enjoy it. Still fairly full from all of that ice cream and pizza, we returned to the boat, had a fairly light dinner, some drinks, and a wonderful show. That was Lord Neil, the escape artist, which was really nice, and fully satisfied and happy we closed the day. Next day we were in Rome. With Rome, I actually would recommend taking a tour because it's very difficult to navigate. It's a really long ride. It's really far from the port, so definitely get a tour. Rome is believed to be founded in 753 BC by Romulus. And here we'll share with you some of the most interesting facts about the city. Rome had some of the most infamous rulers, notorious for their cruelty and debauchery. Any guesses? Nero must come to mind, but he was not the only one. We're going to start with Gaius Caligula. He did some very, very questionable stuff indeed. First of all, he appointed his horse as a senator. He committed an incest with his sister, back in the day who didn't, I guess, fed prisoners to wild animals, and consulted the moon on most matters. Roman Emperor Nero is considered to be altogether the greatest criminal of history, or thereabout. His name has become synonymous with evil. As historical accounts take it, he is accused, either directly or indirectly, causing death of his stepbrother, his wife, his mother, not to mention great Stoic philosopher Seneca, who also was his tutor, as well as instigating the devastating Great Fire of Rome. In Rome, you'll probably see the symbol SPQR a lot, which stands for Senatus Populusque Romanus, which means the Senate and the people of Rome. As simple as that. So what to see in Rome? Modern Rome has 280 fountains, by some estimates considered to be the city with the most fountains in the world. The must-see fountain would obviously be 30-meter high Trevi fountain, perhaps the most famous fountain in the world. It's a beautiful Baroque fountain on the Piazza de Trevi. It was initially designed by Bernini, but too expensive, 50 years later was redesigned by Salvi to make it cheaper. The construction took 30 years, between 1732 and 62. In the center stands the statue of god Neptune, being pulled to the sea on his shell-shaped chariot, pulled by two winged horses and tritons. Tritons were the young gods of the sea. Nearly 70,000 euros worth of coins are tossed to the fountain each year, roughly 3,000 euros a day. They're picked up every night, and the money is donated to the Catholic charity. And of course, Colosseum. Colosseum could accommodate 65,000 spectators. Unbelievable back in the day. Built in the year 72 CE, it took only 8 years to construct, and financed, sadly and ironically, with plunder of Jerusalem. Sort of a cruel zero-sum game here. The Colosseum, also called Amphitheatrum Flavium, was opened by Emperor Titus with games and festivities that lasted 100 days and cost lives of 5,000 animals. Entertainment in Rome was frequently used to distract people from more important matters, such as fact that, lives were tough, and through entertainment Romans made sure that no one complained. Emperor Domitian later expanded the amphitheater with extra story, making Colosseum the largest amphitheater in Roman history. Considered one of the 7 wonders of the world, throughout the battles that took place in the Colosseum, it estimated that roughly 500,000 people and 1 million animals were killed. In the evening, we had a really good Indian cuisine, and then watched a terrific musical, then finished it up with a rock concert in a local pub. Here I have to say that entertainment is truly great. It's definitely a great deal to get all in one package: the accommodation, the transportation, the entertainment, the food. So in that sense, cruise actually offers a great advantage to travelers. So cheers to that. Thank you so much for joining, and see you soon.